happy birthday to me. So I'll tell you something here. I've had this book sitting on my nightstand for years. I've never read it, heard so much about it, and just never, well, I won't say I didn't get the urge to read it. I'll just say I don't really like reading that much, but I do it. It's a sacrifice. And I'm trying to get myself back into reading a book. So I decided, hey, what probably would keep me motivated is if I share it with you. Yeah. So I am going to read this book. It's called Halftime. If you have not read it, well, fine, we're going to read it together. By Bob Buford. Bob Buford. Now, you might not know this. I just turned 51. And somehow I feel like I am in off time. And I was thinking of the song that Kendrick Lamar sung the other day at the game, the Super Bowl, during halftime. And I'm thinking of how that song, normally a song or a singer like that is not put in that spotlight. And I understand there's some negatives about how he performed. I think he did amazing because it was all about the message. Sometimes we want to be entertained, but we don't want to be taught. And that's the difference. So I decide I'm going to read this book for myself. And while I'm reading it, I'm going to share it with you. Again, it's called Halftime. And it's written by the one and famous Bob Buford. Okay? And I'm just going to do the introduction on the back real quick. By the author of Game Plan, Bob Buford believed the second half of your life can be better than the first. Much better. But first, you need time to figure out what you want to do with the rest of your life. So he decided that a reader called Halftime to reflect. So he recommended that a reader called Halftime to reflect not only on where he's going, but why. In Halftime, Buford focused on this important time of transition. The time when, as he says, a person moves forward and first half moves forward beyond the first half of the game of life. It's halftime, a time of revitalization and for catching new vision, for living the second most rewarding half of life. As Buford explains, my passion is to multiply all that God has given me. In the process, give it back. That requires asking important questions. What am I really good at? What do I want to do? What is most important to me? What do I want to be remembered for? If my life were absolutely perfect, what would it look like? Buford fills halftime with a blend of personal insight, true life examples, and quotes from those who have successfully navigated the exhilarating and potentially dangerous shoal of midlife, complete with a discussion guide. Halftime provides encouragement and wisdom to propel your life on a new course away from mere success to true significance and the best years of your life. You see why I selected this book for my halftime? I am older than half a century. A lot of things make sense to me now that didn't make sense to me before. Anyway, I am not going to bore you with my life. I'm going to go ahead and read. Okay, part one. Part one. Oh, sorry. Let's adjust this. Part one, the first half. The real test of a man is not when he plays the role that he wants for himself, but when he plays the role destiny has for him. Is that Vaclav Havel? I might differ. Listening to the gentle whisper. Wait, just to make sure I didn't miss anything. These are just the foreword and other information. If you have the book or buy the book, you'll get that part for yourself. Listening to the gentle whisper. Then a great and powerful wind tore the mountains apart and shattered the rocks before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. After the wind, there was an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. After the earthquake came a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire came a gentle whisper. 1 Kings 19, verse 11b to 12. I have not always paid attention to my life. To be honest, I only began paying close attention when I reached my early 40s and found myself in a success panic. I was the president and CEO of a tremendously successful cable television company. I was fully engaged in good and growing marriage. Okay? We had a son who was, there's no more appropriate way to say it, a prize. And of course, there was something gnawing at me. How was it that I could be so successful, so fortunate, and yet so frustratingly unfulfilled? I knew perfectly well what I believe about business strategies and practices, family relationship, and the importance of friends, but had not decided how I was going to reconcile all of these competing interests. And as for the most important issue of all, my life of faith, I knew what I believed, but I didn't really know what I planned to do about what I believed. It was then that I started to wrestle with what I wanted out of the second half of my life. I was gripped with an unfortunate but very compelling idea that I should make my life truly productive, not merely profitable. I began to reckon with the implication of the seasons of my life and to listen for the sound of the gentle stillness that breaks forth unexpectedly after the fire. I began asking myself questions like, am I listening for the still and small voice? Is my work still the center of my life and identity? Do I have an eternal perspective as a prism through which I view my life? What is my true purpose, my life work, my destiny? What does it really mean to have it all? What do I want to do? What do I want to be remembered for? What would my life look like if it really turns out well? In the scriptures, Jesus Christ preached that he had come so that his followers might have abundant life, life to the fullest. That's a wonderful sentiment, and I think its point is missed by many people who think that religion is restrictive and forbidden, who think that Jesus come to scold and to scold, to scald and to scold and say no. The Jesus I had come to know and love was leading me to the paths of a large life, not a small nor narrow one. He was asking me to say a loud yes to a life packed with significance. But I did not hear his yes in my first half because I was too busy to listen. The issue for me was not belief. The issue for me was not belief. I was given the gift of belief in God at an early age, but for most of my first half, I was, to use a sports metaphor, stranded on second base. Consider the following graph. I hope you can see it. Charity, belief, follower, kingdom builder, seeker, spectator. First base is talking about the simple, childlike step of belief. For me, it was a simple acceptance. That's what Jesus said about himself in the Bible was true. This step involves what, oh God, Kierkegaard called a leap of faith. I'm so sorry if I don't pronounce it right. Faith doesn't deny reason, but it is different than reason. It accepts as a gift from God a different set of capacities. Without faith, we are spectators to a fear of the heart and soul. With faith, we can go on to engage the other two capacities, our rational and emotional senses, on the journey of personal growth to second base. For me, the journey to second base was entirely about belief. It first engaged the heart, and then the mind. Rounding second base involved a shift from being what the Bible calls a hearer of the word to being a doer of the word. A shift from viewing faith as an internally sorry faith as internally held belief system to faith expressed in the form of loving behavior. Faith expressed in behavior is the most excellent way. St. Paul of speaks of it himself. Great chapter of love, 1 Corinthians 13, which ends faith, hope, and love. The greatest of these is love, Paul says. The Greek word for love, agape, is exactly the same as the word for charity. Charity is the expression of love. It is as if faith and hope were acquired on the journey to the second base, on the journey towards home base. And I think, let me read that again. Charity is the expression of love. It is as if faith and hope were acquired on the journey to second base in order to equip us for the second half journey towards home base. The third base involves becoming a follower by expressing our faith in the form of concrete work. In a religious setting, either a church or a parachurch organization, and then we're finally on the last stretch, the journey to home base. This stage involves making ourselves what Gordon MacDonald has called kingdom builders. This means finding the mission in the world which has been specifically designed by God for each of us to do. It is what the Greek calls destiny, what poet John Donne referred to when he said, "No man is an island entire of himself." No man is an island entire of himself. The second half of the baseball diamond is about good works. It is not at all separate from the first half, which is about belief, but grows out of that belief and gives it integrity. Paraphrasing St. James' famous line, faith without works is dead. I put it this way, faith without works dies. The life of faith must become a life of individual responsibility. The leg and the hands must follow the heart and the head, or the body is not whole. While God would like to see all of us hit a home run, most Christians never get beyond belief. George Gallup Jr. says that 84% of Americans declare themselves to be Christians, which ought to be enough to infuse solid biblical values into all areas of culture. I do not doubt Gallup's finding, but I must tell you, I do not see nearly that much evidence of Christian faith in our society. I believe that is because most of us are struck somewhere between first and second base. That was part one. I'll pause here and then go into part two.